We are excited, yet know there's a lots to be done before this regular season ends. Well documented are finding different ways to bring closure with victories. Last night's game with New Mexico was what I thought it would be. Very intense on both sides. It had a bit of a tournament feel to it with the physicality, the non-give on either side, and when it looked as if we had a chance to get and hold a lead, New Mexico willed their way back in, as much or more by what they did than what we did or didn't do. And I think that's the nature of what we're going to see from here on out. And we have to be prepared. And we have to be able to make plays and then make important plays and then make plays that win for you. And we did that again. We now travel to Air Force, where too many people will be saying, well, we got to get ready for BYU. This game with Air Force here was hard. If you go back and look, they played at Vegas, 49-42, final score, 37-36 with about 3 minutes to go in the game. So they will play at a pace that's atypical, and we must be ready for that. When they shoot the ball, they can beat anybody. And they're capable. The way they run their offense, they're going to get shots. We just have to contest the best we can and make sure we make it difficult for their better shooters not to get wide open clean looks. So we know we've got work to do, and we've got work to do as we prepare for Air Force today, tomorrow, for a noon tip their time. I believe it's a noon tip their time, 11 a.m. tip here. So it's going to be a quick turnaround, and we must make sure that we're ready for it. Any questions?
Coach, you give your players a lot of freedom. How hard is it to play a disciplined team like that? Not only at altitude, but it's so different than what you normally see.
It is different. There's no question about that. We do give our players freedom, and they respect and appreciate that. And yet, we teach in practice the discipline that it takes at both ends of the floor to use that freedom the right way. And with that comes responsibility. You know, with freedom comes responsibility to make good decisions at both ends of the floor. I believe we still do, but a week ago we led the Mountain West Conference with under 10 turnovers a game. That was the best in the league. So that means that we're not just running, throwing the ball 6 rows up into the bleachers, doing crazy things. We led and we lead the Mountain West in field goal defense overall, which is under 40%, 38-6 going into last night, and 3-point field goal defense, which we were bad at last year. We are holding our opponents to, I believe, under 28% from 3-point range, which was terrific. So we've got discipline with how we guard. We've got discipline with what we do on offense. And at times it might not look like that because we get the dunks and we get the runouts and we get things that everybody likes to see. But we work to take away getting the guy's footsteps, know when we have to tag a screen, know when we can give ground, know who you can hedge off of. So our players, I would say, if you say, you know, freedom is there, but boy, they're good at what they do and they know what they have to do to be successful. So I'm pleased with that.
Is it better to have them already played them once?
Probably better to have them played them once if our kids don't just remember that we won. If they remember foul making about 14 points in the first half against us here, over the top of the screen, step back a little late, dribble penetrate, knowing how we were hurt, and try to not make it quite that difficult or a task for us this time, although it will be. What we do now, what we'll have for them today is a series of cuts that involve us, which they all, you always love to watch yourself. So we'll have cuts of how we guarded them and what hurt us and who was at fault and why we had it happen. So I think it'll be a good teaching tool. So yes, it should be a good assistance to us having played them once.
Coach, from a national perspective, you hear about Kawhi's name a lot, and DZ will come up. Malcolm Thomas is a very impressive player, doesn't get the same amount of attention nationally. Can you talk a little bit about what he brings to your team?
Well, if anybody watched us play last night, Malcolm would be on the front burner with all of them. He had 22 points, 2 or 3 blocks, a handful or more rebounds, and played spectacular at both ends. Has taken a liability and turned it into an asset. Free throw shooting. Was 10 for 12 from the free throw line. When Malcolm feels good about himself from a confidence standpoint, he can play very, very effectively. And he had that last night, which was good to see. He went through a stretch where he had a couple of games where it was almost like he shot it thinking it was going to miss. And you can't do that. But our players and our coaches know the value Malcolm brings to this team. He's a very, very good basketball player.
Coach, how did you feel that Chase and Tim did last night?
Tim got limited minutes. His foot started to bother him. I thought when he was in there he did a good job. But once again, he took a charge and saved the basket. He gives you all the things that you win with. I thought Chase did a nice job. He got fatigued, he got tired. I think the lack of running up and down showed a little bit, but we needed him. I thought both of them did a good job for us, and can't even recall stat lines for either of them, which probably wasn't very impressive, but we needed them desperately to win that game.
Coach, have you broken down the last 2 games, the last 10 minutes of the game, and figured out why you weren't able to get baskets, and whether it's something that's a cause of concern, or whether you were doing other things and just getting fouled, and maybe that's sort of a stat that's not very accurate?
And I have not. I do think to some degree it was a byproduct of the number of times we went to the free throw line, and that wasn't the only reason. But if you look at both of those games down the stretch, we're trying to not hold the ball, but we're trying to make sure we don't, shoot it in 5 seconds. And we got to make sure that doesn't lend itself not to get a great shot. And maybe that's part of it. So we've talked on that about, we run shuffle into something, and that you still have to cut, and it can't be just false motion where nobody thinks you're going to do anything. And then we've missed some shots that have been pretty good. But I think if you look at the number of possessions we've had in both of those games, there have been fewer than you would think for over a 9 or 10 minute gap. So, that being said, you got to make more than 1 field goal in 9 minutes, and you got to make more than 1 field goal in 10 minutes if you expect to win consistently.
Is this team getting gassed? Is there anything to that, or should it be happening?
Whether it was physical fatigue or mental fatigue, we had it last night. I would agree with that. Once again, Chase Tapley's got an excuse, not a reason, but that's the reason. He missed a week of everything, and now coming back, and you don't all of a sudden get your wind and endurance. So he looked tired. But the guys that played, and they played a lot of minutes, they were fatigued. I think the stress too of a game, it just works that way. When when you have a lead and you see it start to evaporate, I think that adds to your stress level a little bit, and kind of can, if you're not careful, could be a little draining. And I think maybe that was a little bit of it last night for us. I think shouldn't be, but I think it might have been a little bit. You got a little more pep in your step when you make baskets. Everything in the whole world looks better. You run a little faster. You got a little bit of hop in your get along, and it, you just ask. We didn't make any field goals for half a game over 2 games. We're in good condition, even though at periods. I would agree with what your statement. We looked tired last night down the stretch.